Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. You are now entering Season 2 of the Swan Hockey Podcast. Swan Hockey is flying around the junior hockey world one episode at a time. You'll experience things dreams are made of, as well as things of terrible nightmares. Strap in, hold on, and enjoy the ride. And now, Swan Hockey.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Swan Hockey. We are in Season 2. I am Eric Swanick, and today we are joined once again by Bill Underwood. We've been on a roll, Bill, so we've been flowing, so we're just gonna keep that going. How's everything going today?
Sure. Good. How about you?
Good. Can't complain. We got a very interesting episode coming up. So if you guys out there listening, hop into Discord. Let us know what you think. The discussion always continues in the Discord. So going back to, I mentioned in last week's episode, Bill, that the NCDC coming out with with them promoting their new landscape and their new structure and whatnot, they have alluded to and pretty much come out and said, and I think they actually did come out and say that they are the premier Tier 2 Junior A league in the United States, on par or exceeding the North American Hockey League. Now, when I first read that, just like everybody else, we kind of laughed, right? The more I'm thinking about it, I think it's kind of like, hey, might not be so funny. Don't laugh yet. The more I think about this, I see a potential path to the NCDC being able to actually accomplish this. And it's very, very interesting. And there's two main points that I'm looking at that we'll dive into, but yeah, very, very interesting. And I think, again, I think a lot of people, when that came out, they're like, oh, haha, funny. But like I said, I wouldn't laugh yet because there's some interesting things here at play. And the first one is what's going on with USA Hockey. Oh, God bless you. The first thing that's going on with USA Hockey right now, right? USA Hockey is in some kind of mess, including at the youth level, right? There's different rules potentially that that they've been looking at for youth hockey and with this NDL. And depending on what happens, we could see a decent amount of youth teams leave USA Hockey. I think that's more than a possibility, maybe even a probability at this point, depending on what happens. Now, the first way that I think that could really benefit Murray Gunty, the USPHL, the NCDC, is if Murray picks those guys up, right? If we see some type of exodus from USA Hockey at the youth level, if the USPHL is able to do something with that and grab those teams, I think we're going to see a lot of players at the youth level growing up in youth systems, and all they're going to really know is NCDC. That's what they're going to be marketed to, is NCDC. And I think that works in the NCDC's favor big time. That's kind of the first big point that I see here of, hey, maybe these guys do have a path to catch the NA and surpass them.
Well, one, that turmoil has been going on for years. It's nothing too new. We've had AY shrink. We've had a lot of teams go independent. We've had a lot of stuff happen in USA Hockey. It's not that new, really. Number one. Number two, I don't think that's even the NCDC's plan. I think that the plan of that group is to get as many youth tuition programs in there, profit programs in there to increase the bottom line and get more and more bottom line. Junior hockey is not really a bottom line part of their component of their plan. In fact, junior hockey is probably the biggest money loser in their whole plan right now. Because, unless you sit there, now you can sit there, look at the tuition teams, NCDC, okay, they're not a money loser, but the tuition-free teams are, probably a cash drain or a break even or a slight profit proposition, because what really gets them their profit is a plethora of youth teams. And where they play junior hockey doesn't matter. It just matters they get those tuitions at youth. Then you come to the other issue, that no kid is going to make a decision based upon where they played youth hockey, where they played junior hockey. There's a big disconnect. They want to go to where players are going to college hockey from. They want to go to programs that are strong programs, that are established programs. They're not really looking, and look, kids today, they read, they just go to elite prospects to see who sent so more players to college. The biggest thing kids need in education items is where they stand in the hockey world. They understand how the hockey world works. They don't necessarily understand where they fit in. And some parents, not all, but some educate themselves that way. Plus, they're in an era where most players get an advisor. Certainly a high percentage of them do. The better ones all do. And they're going to sit there and have their advisor tell them things. And even some of the coaches at that level, there's a lot of prestige sending a guy to the USHL. A lot of prestige for a coach or a major.
Yeah,
junior.
but I'm not talking about USHL and major junior, right? Those leagues, that's a different beast, right? I'm saying like NA compared to NCDC.
I'm even talking about NAHL, because there is a degree of prestige there. Because for one thing, USHL's relationship with NAHL. Another thing that will come to play is that remember, there are some organizations where the NCDC coach and the youth coach don't get along so well. It's not necessarily that he's encouraging kids to go to the NCDC team. He doesn't have that idea at all.
Yeah, and I know one person. I know one organization you're talking about. I mean, I don't think most of them are like that. And I really think that funnel at the youth level is important. Like you look at what the North American League has done over the years. Has been, like with the NAPHL events and all that stuff and NA3 and all, how they've tied, and the combines and all that stuff, how it's, gotten, those 4 letters NAHL in front of so many kids. Now I think this can go a different direction where you have a different set of letters in front of these kids on a, daily, weekly, monthly basis. And I really do believe that plays a major part. Is it the end all be all? No, I do agree with you that players will do their research, but I think the baseline is going to change. I think the baseline, or I shouldn't say is going to change. I think it could change depending on how things unfold at the youth level here. It's going to be an interesting, I guess, I don't know, maybe next 6 months, but I think that baseline could change of what these kids know, what the perception is, and then it'll be, up to them to do research to dive into the weeds of things. But I very much believe that baseline could change, which would work obviously in the favor of whoever's side it changed to.
I've seen virtually no evidence that NAHL or NAPL, not NAHL3 or NAPL, has had any impact on kids going to the NAHL. Only impact I might have is for that lower end player. That's the only way they're to get a tender to get to camp and usually not make the team. The truth of the matter is,
you don't think that plays an impact though of these kids wanting to play in the NAHL?
No, not at all. Because I've seen guys defect. I've seen kids defect from their programs to other leagues. It's a matter that they want to play junior hockey, and they'll go where the best opportunity is. And they are educated. They can go out and get one of the hockey TV subscriptions. They can look at NHL drafts. They can look at commits. And this is all the stuff that comes into play. This is what they think about. And plus, you have a league that is mostly tuition now. So I'm being told, let me get this straight. I'm being told by a NAHL team, you can play here for free. Or, hey, you can play for this NCDC team we had and pay $12,000. What's Dad going to say? Well, I don't think we're going to stay local.
Well, that's going to lead me into point 2. But I think, like I said, I think that's going to be the second layer of education. The baseline, I believe, is going to change. And then I think that it's going to, again, like I think the baseline is going to change. And I think it's going to be up to that secondary education that's going to, keep the NAHL on top or whatnot. And don't forget, for a player to get that offer of $0 to the NAHL, he has to get an offer, right? Like until there's an offer, right? He's not getting that, he's not having somebody walk up to him and say, hey, do you want to play here for $0?
Even off of Wheel of Fortune, come to camp. You may win that free season. They'll come. And you think about another thing. Kids change youth organizations all the time. They'll be in and out of
Wheel of Fortune's not really a good sell, Bill.
Well, there's a Wheel of Fortune here that you're going to be, maybe you make an NCDC team for tuition, or maybe you don't, and go play it all and get tuition. So the point being is, bottom line is, you come back down to it, that there's a better offer. And you sit down and look at the other issue here that comes into play. Kids change youth organizations as they grow up. They're not going to almost never go up in one youth organization. They switch these days. So you're not necessarily be having that situation come. And what about junior teams? And their tremendous loyalty to their players coming up through their system. You'll see a team say, sure, come with us. You'll play in the NCDC. And then they'll go out and bring a kid in from Magnitogorsk in Russia to play over you.
That happens everywhere. That happens with NCDC, NA, USHL. Like, that's not going to be any different anywhere.
that's the point. And same thing, they'll bring a kid in from St. Louis and bring kids in that are not affiliated at least with the USPHL like the NAHL does that aren't affiliated with them. So that's why there is no brainwashing, because you come up through it. Look, in Canada, kids play for the Marlboros. You'd think, okay, they're definitely no major junior. Well, suddenly they get to be 16, 17, and they're playing in the USHL, because they see a better opportunity there, because they weren't drafted in the OHL, weren't drafted high, or drafted by a team they didn't want to play for. So it's not like you're necessarily going to get every Marley to go as OHL.
But you don't think every Marley would love to play in the OHL?
Most would.
I mean, and it's a better level than the USHL, right? I don't think any Marley is saying, like, I don't think anybody up there is like saying, hey, I don't want to play at the best level. I'd rather move to a different country and play at a lower level.
No, but they might, because they're not happy about who they're drafted with. There are very few, but I'm just saying the point being is, and that's a different story because it is the best league in the world. But what I'm saying is, if, hey, that happens the best league in the world, why in the world would it happen with another league that's not even close to the best?
Right, but you're talking about making a decision based off of your opportunity in the best league in the world and then going to a different league. I'm talking about when that kid is, young, everything's ahead of him. He's not into this yet. He's coming up through a youth system, right? That player in Ontario, his dream is to play in the OHL, right? His goal is to play in the OHL. In terms of this level of junior, I could see these youth players growing up and what they know is NCDC. I'm not saying at the end of the day that's what they're going to choose if they have both offers on the table. I'm saying the baseline perception, this is what they grow up knowing. This is what they grow up watching at the rink in their spare time. I think that would work in major favor of the NCDC.
Not at all, because differences in the Marlboros, you're growing up in an organization. Well, because you're dealing again with the Premier League of the world, with a league that's not seen as remotely premier. Number one. Number two, you're dealing with a league that is Hall of Fame, a league that has Hall of Fame players going in, versus a league that, if you're lucky, you're playing at a good Division III school right now. Division I, almost nobody. And what kid doesn't dream of Division I? So let's sit down and think about that. You see the top players in your
but
team.
This is all secondary education level, right? The baseline. Right, the baseline, the first impression is going to be, oh, what's this? Oh, NCDC. They're watching it. Oh, what's NCDC? Oh, it's junior hockey. Right, their first impression, what they know is going to be, what they know of junior hockey is going to be NCDC. Then it's going to be on themselves to educate them further for that secondary layer, third layer. But what their baseline is going to be, hey, this is NCDC. This is junior hockey.
Well, if that were true, you'd have EHL kids saying that. I grew up with the Little Flyers. Oh, Little Flyers junior hockey. We have the EHL here. This is junior hockey. I want to play in the EHL.
Absolutely. I think that's real for young players growing up. Their first impression, was the Flyers in the EHL. And my point is now if the USPHL is able to cover so much ground, they'll be having so many more kids with that first impression.
It won't be a first impression if you're especially an organization that doesn't have. Very easy, or the team that doesn't have an NCDC club, they're not in the building. You just have this detached thing. Oh, this NCDC thing. Oh, it's another league. We've heard about that. But, there's a complete disconnect. Not every one of although I wouldn't say that, maybe every one of these teams will have an NCDC team eventually. You might have 120 NCDC teams then, but that's the point.
Well, that's going to bring me into my next point. And
no, it'll bring you into a nightmare because everybody will say this is ridiculous.
I'll tell you. Well, and like I said, I think it depends on the marketing, right? Like if the NCDC and USPHL controls the youth, obviously that's what they're going to push to the youth. Even if the youth team doesn't have an NCDC team in their building, I imagine it's going to be marketed to them in some way, shape, or form. And like I said, I think that can only work in the NCDC's favor.
If they want to spend somebody to come in from North Korea that's great at brainwashing, maybe. But I don't think that's going to work. You can't brainwash kids like that. The way for the NCDC to reach that level, I'll tell you one of two ways. And basically, it's two steps on one way. Number one, you have to go to a slimmed down elite league. A very trimmed down small number of teams. You're saying there's no chaff in this league. And in junior hockey, since you're talking about kids' careers, and now with nil, and now that doesn't mean so much, well, do what they already sort of started doing, paying players. And then, it's like, how do you create any hockey league that really works, in the world today? You pay players. You pay them to go there. Because otherwise, you're not going to have kids sit there having an incentive go to a league with no history and risk their career on it. So the point being is they're going to do neither, because the whole thing about NCDC is, remember, these guys are clever. This is not about ego. This is not about prestige. It's about money. Where's the money? By having as many youth hockey programs as you can. And junior, if anything, as I state, is a drag on your profit. It's something that is not the big profit center for these leagues. You have non-tuition junior, it's a drag. Because how are you subsidizing all those costs if you're not charging players? You're not drawing any fans. You don't have any TV except for the TV people subscribe to. You don't have.
I don't know. I disagree in the fact that what drives it. I think there's a lot of pride in having high end stuff. Like obviously, Murray owns part of owns a USHL team. Like there's, and think about it. This whole thing started because the league went tuition free, right? The old EJ was tuition, right? They made the conscious decision to say, hey, let's get rid of the money because they wanted something better. Right. And
so what do? They go and expand and bring a bunch of teams in paying tuition now.
Yes, and it could all be part of a bigger plan. Right. More right. So. Like this could be the stage that we're in right now. It doesn't mean that there's not something bigger coming, and maybe there's not. Right. But this is the path that I see, to potentially, could be a possibility. And the second part of this for me is the fact that they are popping up these NCDC teams all over the place. I think now it's going to provide a lot more players an opportunity to stay at home. And I think a lot of players will wind up saying, hey, you know what? Let me not go play for that $50,000 a year academy. Let me play for this $12,000 a year NCDC team. And I think that it's going to start taking players away from U18, U16 academies and keeping them over in the NCDC. Now, what happens? Think about this now. Let's say that starts happening. Now you have teams in the North American Hockey League that rely heavily on their academies, their 18s, their 16s to fund their NA team. Now you're taking that money away from them, right? You don't necessarily, like with the NA, you don't have to knock down the building. You just got to weaken the infrastructure, right? And then it could potentially collapse, right? So think about this now. And again, we're going over a lot of hypotheticals, but now the NCDC starts draining academies and 18s and 16s of their paying customers. Now the teams, some of the teams out east, some of the teams in general in the NA that rely on their tuition-based programs, right, where you're saying the money is to fund their NA teams, now all of a sudden they have a bigger problem than they already do financially. Now we have a civil war in the NA between the guys that are financially struggling and the guys that aren't. The guys that are financially struggling, they're going to, two choices, either pull out of the league. And where are they going to go? They're going to go to the NCDC, right? Or there's going to be a civil war. They're going to want the NA to start charging. And if the NA does that and starts charging, now they're back on level playing fields. Both leagues are charging players to play.
I don't think there's any plan like that at all. Because number one, kids in a lot of those areas are going to realize they're never scouted there. Where are you going to go? You're still going to go to Woodbridge. Why? Because you'd be scouted. You're going to be seen. Kids want to be seen. You want to go to a league like Norpac because they're seen. Why do kids want to go there? Because everybody, their cousin, goes to those games. Like this Tier 1 event this weekend. How many scouts you seriously think will be there up this weekend watching those games?
I agree with you that Woodbridge is the top end team.
Talking to a lot of guys, they're not going because it's something that just in the end it doesn't make sense. The level of play isn't good enough. The teams like the Rockets you can go see in the district playoffs. They'll be there. They're meaningful, good teams will be in districts. So why are you watching?
I agree with you that the Woodbridge example, they're a top end program, right? You're going to have top end program. Every league has their top and their bottom, right? I'm talking generally speaking, right? So would a player still choose to go to a program like Woodbridge over an average NCDC program? Yeah, they very well may, right? Yeah. But if we're generally speaking, right, what about all those academy programs and all those 18s and 16s that are just, right? That players ask you and I about all the time, and we're like, right? Don't you think that there's going to be a lot of people that choose to play in the NCDC for $12,000 instead of a program that's for $40,000?
It all depends on the program, because they throw in another flaw to that.
Yeah, that's my point.
Murray Gunty, here's the big flaw. Murray Gunty owns Mount St. Charles, which is exactly one of those programs. So you're seeing programs like that filter into the USPHL world, if you will, and you're getting teams like that filtering into the world. In which case, they have their own academies doing the same thing. So in the end, nobody's going to cut the bottom line here, because Murray Gunty is a very clever guy. I think he's one of the smartest guys in hockey. And I think he has a very interesting situation. Yes, he does have a pro in his empire. He has Youngstown. He may be in the OHL someday. He has,
but that's what I'm saying. He's very smart.
He has a North American.
Right. He's very smart. And at a certain point, you got to bet on people. Right. And I don't think anybody can count Murray out. Right. Like you can't count him out of being able to make something on par or exceeding the NA.
I'm not counting him out. I'm counting him as maybe brighter than anybody at NA, because Murray understands where money is. And that's the point. He's going to make profits those guys would never see. Because he understands the dollars and cents of hockey. And let's be honest, putting out that level of hockey is not a profitable type of program to run. The profitable programs are, you get the right city and major junior, even the right USA. Well, any major junior team can make you money. USHL, some places can make you money. And you look at tuition hockey, that's where the big money is. And that's the problem. Why in the world? You're a businessman. You're looking at a bottom line here. Why in the world do you go and try to expand the one part of your model is actually a cash drag? You're not gonna. And you can't just bring in junior teams abracadabra consistently, tons of them, and expect them to change. Because again, like you put an advisor's hat, you're gambling with a kid's career. The first thing I'm asking is, okay, how many people are watching your games? I'm asking you, how many players do you graduate to higher levels? How many players are you moving up and to where? And if you can't show that to me, and I'm not talking about pie in the sky, in the future we're going to do this. No, I want to know, what have you done? I couldn't care less about what you're saying you're going to do. A junior league in Texas did that a couple of years ago, and they hired good people with those teams. But you know something? You couldn't send a guy down there. Aside from the fact that it was in Texas, not a great scouting location. You're talking about sending guys to a place where, there's no track record in moving guys to higher levels. So why should I believe I have a player that has a chance to play college hockey? Why would I want to put him there? There's no logical reason.
Put him where?
That Texas League they're trying to start. And it's the same thing here. Now, here you do have the Atlantic Conference. That's a very good place. That's a nice place. I can trust that Atlantic Conference. But can I trust teams in these two new conferences? No, I can't. They have no track record. There's nothing sitting there saying to me I should send
I think you could trust them every bit as much as like some of these 18 and 16 and academy teams. Right. I'm not saying the top teams, right? Your top teams will always be dominant, right? Like your top academy teams or 18s or 16s, like those are the top, like those guys are going to be the top. It almost doesn't matter what league they're playing in. Those are great operators. They're going to be the top. But, on average, I mean, if you're looking at two situations that are comparable, one in the NCDC, one in U18, I mean, I can't look the parent in the face and hold a straight face and tell them that they should pay, $30,000-$40,000 more to play U18.
I can, if it's talking about some crappy team in that new conference, one of those two non-conference.
Two comparable. No, I said two comparable situations. Two comparable teams, right? One NCDC, one U18, two comparable situations, just in different avenues.
I'm saying the only comparable situation you could say that'd be better is to go to one of the real NCDC teams, and then if you can play, if a kid can play, if he can get ice time, I'd say to go play in the NCDC. If he can get ice time, if he's not getting ice time, probably he's better off another year in 18s or whatever, because he's not going to play there. Now, if he's going to play, that's fine. That's all well and good. But to one of these half-baked teams in the Midwest or South, why don't I just send him to the EHL and have him live at home? It's the same thing. It's really the same type of hockey. I want to talk about parity. Those teams will probably have parity at the EHL.
I agree.
So why in the world would I want to do that? So again, it comes back to the word tuition-free comes involved. This suddenly gets interesting. But if the words tuition-free are not involved, it's not very interesting. And you sit there and look at it.
Yeah, but what about reduced tuition by $30,000 a year? That's not interesting.
Again, it's interesting if it's a good situation, but if it's a situation where you just killed your career, no, it's not. You go out play against 20-year-olds, put no numbers up.
Even a free situation that's going to kill your career is not appealing.
Well, No, but at least you're developed potentially there, and it's not the worst place. If you're talking about playing for even up north, a team like South Shore, if you're talking about going back there another year, that's not a terrible thing. It's not the best thing, but necessarily it all depends upon the situation.
You got to be in a great situation. It doesn't regardless of regardless of the league, you got to be in a great situation, right? What I'm saying is, if there's two situations that are comparable, which I could, which I believe is very well out there, I think a lot of this NCDC. That's, the tuition-based NCDC, I think, will directly compete with, the U18. And I think you will start to see people choose to play tuition-based NCDC instead of tuition-based U18.
If you give up the ghost and saying that's all I'm ever going to play, fine. But if you're hoping to play, if you even have the slightest inkling of hope of going to the USHL.
How are you giving up the ghost?
Because if you're going there, first of all, you're playing against 20-year-olds. Your numbers are going to plummet.
But if you can't put up numbers there, how are you going to go to the USAHL? Right?
Well,
if the player can't put up numbers in the tuition NCDC, he doesn't have to worry about being promoted to the USAHL.
The point is he's too young. He's a 16 or 17-year-old playing against 20-year-olds. His numbers going to be diminished. It has to happen typically.
I don't know. At a certain point, you got to shit or get off the pot. I mean, 17 is really not that young. I mean, there's 18-year-olds in the NHL.
Maybe. Do you want to give up all hope of potentially, and do you want to give up hope potentially of playing in one of the better college programs, which you are with one of those tuition teams, pretty much? You might as well.
I don't think so.
Well, data seems to disagree with you because you don't see a lot of those teams putting teams in the better D3 programs. No. And so therefore, you're basically saying, okay, I'm doomed to low Division 3 or college club. That's all I am. Fine. If you want to be that type of realist, that's wonderful.
If you're going to stay there forever, that's typically where tier 3 players go, right? Like it's not like tier 3 is littered, or this new division of the NCDC is going to be littered with USHL caliber players, and everyone's just going to say, no, let's not take them because it's going to be funny.
No, they're not going to get those guys. They're going to get these kids. They're getting the kids. They're going to get the 19-year-old who hasn't made it. They get the 19-year-old who hasn't made it anywhere else. So go and chop at the younger kids if they're there. It's something that, again, there's virtually no sense for a kid to go to one of those teams unless he's been rejected by the rest of the world.
But every kid that's playing U18 has pretty much been rejected by the rest of the world, right? For me, the U18 player and the tier 3 player, they're both there because tier 1 and tier 2 don't want them.
Not true, because I've gotten guys out of 18s quite regularly to NAHL. I've gotten kids quite regularly to NCDC teams. It's something that you're not done at all. Some kids have played 2 years 18s and end up getting to those leagues. It's something
what's not done at all.
Your career's not done at all at that point.
I don't think your career's done anywhere. I think it's all what you make of it. And again, you're talking about some of the top programs, right? There's top programs in both avenues.
I'm just saying I've gotten kids playing 18s. They end up getting into the NAHL because they played 18s another year. So they went and played they
dominated 18s another year. It's not because they played 18s.
They weren't. But if they hadn't played 18s the year before, they might not have made the team in the NAHL. That's the point. They didn't have. There wasn't the interest there. The interest came after that second year 18s. Small teams say play another year 18s. Then we'll be interested. So the point, it's an old league than all is. It's 19 and 20-year-olds. Now they're going to try to get younger, but I'll believe that when I see it.
Right, and I think if that same player played in this new division of the NCDC, I think he could still go to the NAHL.
I don't think so, because the NAHL is not going to be watching that league. Because it's a matter of it's a matter of scouts only have so much time, and they're not going to go watch lower level junior hockey for the most part. The point being is, again,
that's why everyone's got to be proactive. The player, the coach, the advisor, everybody's got to get in these NA teams' faces. They got to be proactive. Like you can't just sit there waiting to be discovered.
No, you get in their face, but they're going to tell you the same thing like in the OHL. I have advisors getting my face for that, and I say, still, he has to play better hockey before I'm looking at him. I don't give a damn. Send him some places go backwards for a year. No, I want to see him go some places go forward.
I don't think it's backwards. I think it's the same player pool, right? It's all guys that cannot today make tier 1 or tier 2 junior, right? It's the same pool. And again, to tell a family that, hey, go spend $30,000 more because this might look better on paper to some people, I can't do it.
Because why you pay the $30,000 more is going to get you $30,000 more results. Be the difference between paying for college and yes, it might be the difference between paying for college in a Division III club or maybe going to a Division III school and getting yourself some good financial aid. You may have just killed your career.
I don't think so at all.
No kid I'd say belongs in a league like that at that point in their age. It's a kid that's heading for the graveyard. That's heading precisely for intramural hockey. That's heading for future Division III hockey. If you're going at 17 years old or 18, it's like going to the EHL at that age. You don't do it. You just don't do it. Don't go to Tier 3 hockey till you have to. Now, Tier 2 hockey, if you want to make a claim for the Atlantic teams, that's different.
I don't agree with it at all, and especially with the price, difference. Right. I mean, how could Eric, at a certain point you got to perform. You can't just keep paying money. You got to perform.
I'm speaking as a scout for a minute. As a scout, I'm not going to watch that stuff. It's like watching AA hockey.
Yeah, but you're not going to watch the average U18 team either. You're watching the best, right? Like I agree with you. There's a ton of value to the top U18 programs, right? I'm saying generally speaking, most of the U18 programs you would never watch, and you don't watch them as an OHL scout, right? You don't even watch the U18 programs.
I don't give a damn about the program. I give a damn if there's a player in that program. It'd be the worst team in the league.
That's
if there's
my
one
point.
Player there,
it's about the player.
But it's about the level of play too, and it's about whether I'm going to have time for that level of play, and maybe they'll play against a team with other prospects, as opposed to him just being the only kid. And so I'm just speaking, and I'm speaking as a scout because remember I scout at other levels too, and I'm just saying that. And that you can put the same principle in the NHL, the same principle. Did I watch Division III college hockey? No, I did not watch Division III college hockey. Unless I got one freak player, then I'll go see him. But it's generally a one freak senior free agent. But we didn't watch Division III hockey. Why should I? So therefore, I'm going to watch leagues that have odds are more interesting prospects sitting there. And again, I don't think Murray Gunty is even thinking.
Yes, but listen to what you just said, right? You're going to where the prospects are, right? So if this starts to shift and more people start to choose choose a different avenue, the scouts will follow them to that avenue. At the end of the day, it's about the player, how good he is, right? And where is he?
As a scout, how often do I get people coming up to me saying, "Where should I play?" I'm going to tell them to go to one of those elite, to one of those better programs at 18s. Play against your own age group. Put numbers up. Unless you're a freakish player, then I'll tell you know something. You should play for Mercer or South Shore or the Hitmen or the Rockets. If you're going to go NCDC, I'm going to tell a kid, okay, you ought to go to play in the NAHL if you're good enough to play in the NAHL. I'm not going to go tell him to play for the Metro whatever.
I agree with you that the top programs in U18 and U16, the top are the top, right? Not every player is going to play for the top, and there's way more players not playing in the top than are playing in the top, right? So like obviously we're speaking in generally speaking here, right? There's always going to be the exception to the rule. There's going to be that top percentage, right? But for the average hockey player, right? Think about how many 18 programs and 16 programs and academies are out there where the players they basically don't get any value, right? It's just they're playing hockey. That's it. It's not littered with scout. It's not littered with opportunity. It's not littered with development.
If you're working with a kid that's utterly hopeless, that's okay, I suppose. But the point being is most kids aren't hopeless. And something, when I come to most of my clients,
all those kids are hopeless.
I think a lot of them would be because they're putting themselves in that situation. And I think most parents, if you came to that situation as an advisor, they'd say the words, "You're fired." If you told them that quickly, you got to go play in this junky Tier 3 junior team, no, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, "I want to play in a better program."
You play in a good program, right? You stay away from the junk no matter what level you're at.
And those will be the non-tuition programs. That's why I mentioned those teams in particular with NCDC. Non-tuition quality programs. Utica, Westchester, you name the non-tuition teams in that league. PAL, they're quality programs.
There will be quality programs that are tuition.
No,
I'm telling you. Again, to me, it's the same player pool. The U18 guys and the Tier 3 or the other division of the NCDC. It's all guys that at this moment cannot play. They can't play Tier 1 or Tier 2 junior.
I'll tell you what. I know NHLPA advisors who have guys on some of those 18s teams, and also some guys that we've put on our free agent list to look at. that are on 18s teams. Do we have a single one of them from a Tier 3 junior team? No. We do have some from the NAHL. NCDC could get some on the top programs, I suppose, like they have those kids that are drafted in the cadet league.
I'm not saying that those guys don't exist, right? I'm not saying that there's no high-end players in U18. I'm saying that when two situations are equal, I couldn't tell somebody to spend $30,000 more because the equal situation is called U18.
But they're not equal. That's the problem. They're not equal. They aren't equal.
I think there's a ton out there that are. I think you certainly have exceptions, but I think there's a ton out there that are.
Look, I've had guys that picked up that play. It's analogous to the guys that played the EHL at 17, and I've had one or two of them sign with me ex post facto. Did it do one bit of good for their career? No, it didn't. If anything, it hurt them because they're suddenly put on a path where there's a very limited ceiling, and it's hard to tell them to leave Tier 3 because they get to be very good at Tier 3, but going to Tier 2, they won't get power play time. They'll be secondary players. They're not going to put numbers up there. It would be suicide for them. That's the point being is, it's never been a good thing for a guy to go to a lower junior league before his time. Now, NCDC, the good NCDC, and we got to separate. There's real NCDC, and then there's the rest. The real good NCDC, those tuition-free teams, those are good places to be. If their situation is right, it's a good place to be. Of course, you have to always take into account some things. If you're looking to move to another junior league like the USHL, well, you better be careful. That's my point.
It's all about the situation, right? Because now you're saying that below the NA, now there's exceptions, right? And you're saying the good NCDC teams, right? I'm saying there's always everything's about the situation.
But there aren't. The situation is you can play for free or not, and no top player. And remember, who are we going to watch as scouts? We're looking to watch the top players on a team. The other guys can get your attention once you're there. And of course, if you're looking at other guys, you want to see them play against top players, see how good they are. Now, what top player would accept tuition over non-tuition? Nobody in their right mind. You're going to go where there's a non-tuition situation, and the non-tuition situation, again, is not a moneymaker.
Yeah, but think about what you're saying. What you're saying, no player in the right mind would accept tuition over non-tuition. What about high tuition over lower tuition?
But again, you get what you pay for. Science. It's like going to Harvard versus going to a local community college.
A lot of times you don't, and I would say very, very often you do not.
It's not going to work because the whole psychology is wrong. You're not going to see people do it, and in the end, we're talking about nothing in the end. I don't think Murray Gunty is just some ego-crazed guy. I think he's a clever businessman. He's probably the brightest one in hockey. I really do.
And there's probably a very good chance he's got a plan.
I think the plan is to run a highly profitable program because that's what Murray has always done his whole life. He's made a lot of money. He's always made a lot of money for other people, his investors. I think he's probably the most brilliant businessman you're going to have in American youth sports today. He's brilliant on that, and I will give him credit. He's a genius. What he's done on a lot of things has been very. People can question some things, but one thing I can say is it's worked on a lot of levels. But I don't think he's somebody that's just some ego-crazed nut that's going out there to take over the world at all costs. I think he's somebody that has a plan. He has his USHL team, which is USA Hockey, right? He has that still. He wants an OHL team. Hockey Canada, Hockey Canada, right? Yeah, he has a NAHL team. Notice he hasn't pulled out of the NAHL himself. He still has a NAHL team.
Yeah.
So obviously he thinks there's a lot of value to that league. So I think he understands the dichotomy between junior hockey and the rest of hockey. He has his NCDC teams. Yes, he does have that. They play in his rinks, and they're a good feeder system, and they're decent programs, and might add non-tuition programs. Now, you go to the rest here. We're going now to the other side of the whole plan here. He has that pride issue. He'll have an OHL team probably eventually. I do think somehow he'll get one. I think Youngstown, he has in the USHL. He has his NAHL team. But then you get to the NCDC. That's a little bit more of his empire. But the other side of the empire is the money-making empire, the dollars and cents empire, the one that really, really is is the bedrock. And that's not about building some super junior league. It's about building
we'll see what happens.
Youth network. I just don't see how the model works, because in reality, the model does not work very profitably. You look at it, it's the one financial drag, the one blemish on the whole thing. As far as you're an accountant, you know what you'd be saying? If you're one of the accountants, you'd say you're crazy to get into junior hockey at that level. It's going to drag your bottom line down unless you're looking for tax write-off. But of course, the people that own the teams, the league, that aren't him, they're going to sit there, their accountants are going to say, are you nuts? Go out there and start a junior program. You're better off just concentrating on the youth, running as many youth teams you possibly can and make a fortune out of it. Running a junior program might make sense as a capstone program. I mean, but like I say, I think Gunty is a bright guy, and don't get me wrong, NCDC is an excellent league, and EHL has a lot of use too. I don't mean to denigrate any league.
You just got done telling me how nobody should play there instead of U18.
Well, U18, but 19 and 20, there are a lot of kids that should play there. There are a lot of kids that belong there, just like in these new NCDC teams.
I'm busting your chops, Bill.
Well, I'm just saying 19 and 20-year-olds belong to those teams.
We're going to call it here. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So, Bill, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Everyone, remember, the conversation continues in the Discord. You can get there from the link in the description of this episode or from swanhockey.com. Bill, again, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
All right, thank you.
So, all right, until next time, I will see you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Swan Hockey Podcast. We remind you that season pass points are available to listeners. For more information, please visit www.swanhockey.io. Until next time.